My name is William Rios Maldonado. I'm the director for the Procurement Division of the CDBG-DR program, the Puerto Rico Department of Housing. Along with me, I'll be sharing this meeting with Laura Pagan. She is the Deputy Director of the Procurement Division. And also we will have a presentation from Maria del Carmen Figueroa. She leads Section 3 and Minority and Women's Business Enterprises Requirements Division. And she will share with us a presentation regarding the requirements that we must meet eventually if one of you are with the award of this RFP. So the purpose of this pre-bid meeting is to review briefly the requirements and instructions for participating in this procurement process. Also, we will have the opportunity that you make some recommendations, comments, or asking questions or clarifications that we will address later through an addendum that will be published in our website, so everybody could have the opportunity to download the answers to those questions and any other changes or modifications to our original instructions and documents. First, we will have to say that this procurement process will be regulated by the manual, the procurement manual and contractual requirements that was adopted by the Puerto Rico Department of Housing. It is published in our website, so you can go to our website and download the current manual. So you can be, and we suggest that you read this important document regarding the procurement process in general, so you can become familiarized with the requirements.
Essentially, this RFP seeks to select a firm to provide IT consulting services for the CDBG-DR program. As you may know, details for the services are included in Attachment 1, scope of services. Among the main objectives of the services to be provided by the selected proposer will be to assist the PRDOH in the development of a current assessment, need analysis, and the corresponding strategic plan. The term of this contract shall be for 1 year with optional extensions of up to additional years. And basically, the scope of the services includes, among others, to guide the PRDOH to do an assessment of the current state of the IT environment, including current capability, capacity, and resources for all divisions and areas between the PRDOH CDBG-DR team, to identify gaps where the current IT environment is insufficient to meet the computing needs of the PRDOH, to highlight the opportunities and constraints imposed on the IT planning process by the culture and environment of the PRDOH, and also to recommend an IT strategic plan to meet the current and future needs of the PRDOH. And we also included, as you may revise review, to provide telecommuting assistance to PRDOH, and to develop a recommendation for an ongoing long-range planning and communication process to meet the IT needs for the PRDOH, and to recommend also technological solutions to achieve strategic objectives and optimal communications between all divisions of the PRDOH. That's essentially a summary of the scope of services. If you may have any questions pertaining the scope, as William mentioned before, you may provide us with the question, and during the term established in the scheduled, and also we are going to be providing answers by addendum to the RFP.
Laura, you may continue with liquidated damages.
Yeah, sure. This RFP essentially provides for liquidated damages as related to the established timeframes for performance. The PRDOH and the proposer will agree on the timetable for a deliverable of each task. In this case, for this RFP, the PRDOH established as liquidated damages the amount of $100 for each calendar day that a deliverable required is late until deemed compliance, subject to a maximum of $5,000. For the insurance requirements, you may refer to the attachment number 4 that it's included on the RFP instructions. Proposers shall be aware that in the case of resulting selected for the award of this RFP, you must have a minimum of required insurance policies and coverage, okay? So as I mentioned, for details regarding this insurance requirement, please refer to the attachment number 4 included on the RFP instructions. Also, the RFP instruction includes 5 bonus points. So proposers are encouraged to encourage proposers to submit with their proposals a proposed Section 3 plan in compliance with Section 3. As stated in the RFP instructions, submitted proposed plans will be evaluated, and up to 5 points may be assigned to the proposer based on the proposed plan completeness. There are 5 requirements to be included in this proposed plan in order to obtain the 5 bonus points. We have a presentation from the Assistant Deputy Secretary for Disaster Recovery, Maria del Carmen Figueroa, at the end of this presentation for an introduction to federal civil rights, compliance, and labor standards. Please be aware to the schedule established in the RFP for public notice. As you may know, the time was on April 30. The submission of questions and requests for clarification are set for May 14 at 4 p.m. The responses are set for May 21, and the proposals due date for June 16 at 8 a.m. As you may be aware, proposers shall submit all questions in writing on or before the established date on or before May 14 at 4 p.m. to the electronic CDBG-DR mailing address. All the responses to those questions will be answered by addenda and will be posted on the CDBG-DR website. All proposers, all prospective proposer must monitor the website to retrieve any addenda, if any, issue for this procurement process. Now, William, if we want to go through the proposal electronic submission process.
So recently, the PRDOH adopted new guidelines, so we can be able to address the special circumstances that we are living these days. Even though we were working on being able to conduct the procurement process through an electronic platform, it is these special circumstances that accelerate the need to adopt these policies. So we are in the position to be able to receive and complete the process of proposals, their evaluation, and the award through an electronic environment. So basically, we have to emulate this will be similar to what we ordinarily conduct our procurement process when we are, physically able to receive the proposals. Though some of the process in between basically are the same. Communications have been conducted through emails, and fortunately, we have the infrastructure to conduct this process basically the same way that we were conducted before this conditions that we are, confronting right now. So responses will only be accepted by electronic means. In this case, proposals are advised that the Puerto Rico Department of Housing will neither require nor accept physical proposal submissions. If proposals are submitted in both electronic and in paper formats, the department will only consider the electronic format for evaluation. The proposer will receive access to submit the electronic proposals after registration process is completed through the CDBG-DR website. Proposers will be requested to provide and validate an email address. Proposal must be submitted on or before June the 18th, 2020 at 4 p.m. Any change will be notified through an addendum. Access to upload the electronic proposals will commence 3 business days prior to the scheduled due date and time. Prior electronic proposal submission on the CDBG-DR website, proposer must take into consideration the following. Check your internet connection before starting to upload the electronic proposal documents. As the due date time draws near, heavy traffic on the web server may cause delays. Plan ahead and leave ample time to prepare and submit your proposal. Proposers bear the risk of website inaccessibility due to heavy usage in the final hours before the RFP closing time. The proposer must submit the mandatory requirements, qualification, and work approach, and the cost proposal requirements in the identified sections at the website. The documents must be submitted in PDF format. Searchable PDF format is recommended. Multiple PDFs may be merged into a single document. Also, multiple files may be uploaded in a zip file. The maximum upload size for each document or compressed file is 500 megabytes. The proposer is solely responsible for on-time submission of their electronic proposal. The department will only consider electronic proposals that have been transmitted successfully within the RFP requested format. During document upload process, the proposer will be able to click on the documents and have a preview of the uploaded document. Incomplete electronic proposals with errors or if viruses or corrupted files are found after the upload will not be accepted. During submission period, proposer experiencing any technical difficulties may contact the Puerto Rico Department of Housing at cdbg-DR/procurement@vivienda.pr.gov. That information is available in the RFP instructions that you can download in our website. If the CDBG-DR website fails during the submission period or on or before the scheduled time deadline, the department will provide instructions via addendum to the proposers. Once the electronic proposal is submitted, the proposal is locked in the system until the department completes its evaluation. Therefore, the proposer must assure that all documentation required by the RFP has been correctly uploaded at the submission due date. The proposer must be aware that modification to the electronic proposals will not be allowed once the submission is completed. So this briefly is a briefly overview of the electronic submission requirements. Now, Laura, could you go over the evaluation criteria?
Sure. The RFP include the following evaluation criteria. First, you have the mandatory requirements, and these mandatory requirements would be scored as either pass or fail. Failure to comply with all mandatory requirements of this RFP will result in the disqualification of the proposer. And all mandatory requirements are included in Section 6 of the RFP, and includes, among others, the request of a financial evaluation of financial requirements, and includes audited review or compiled financial requirements for the most recent 2 years. The financial statements must include a balance sheet, a statement of operations, statement of cash flows, and notes to the financial statement. It also includes a copy of the income tax return for the same 2 years. And if a proposer has more than 1 year in operation, but less than 2, please provide requested information for the last fiscal or calendar year. And financial requirements are also requires the most recent interim year-to-date financial statements for period ending no later than 60 days before the proposal submission date. The interim financial statements must include at least a balance sheet and statement of operation. It's also requesting a line of credit or cash availability in the amount of $85,000. Also, proposers must be aware of submitting the pending litigation and no bankruptcy sworn statements. And all this information submitted will permit a pass or fail rating following a scoring process by the PRDOH. A total rating of 70% or more is required to obtain a rating of pass. It's important to mention that all documents authorized by a notary public outside of Puerto Rico jurisdiction shall be authenticated and include an official certificate from the Secretary of the State, County Clerk, or corresponding entity of the state government. And next, you have qualification requirements. Qualification requirements for these RFP will have a total maximum score of 60 points. Qualification requirements includes, among others, comparable projects. In this case, you must submit or you must demonstrate that you have successfully completed at least one of the following conditions: at least one contract in the last 10 years with a value of $150,000, or provide a minimum of 3 contracts that the sum of their values is at least equal or greater than $180,000, where the proposer has provided similar services such as those stated in the RFP. Key staff related to engagement as identified in the RFP instruction and the scope of services is also required to be evaluated on their qualifications, as they are included in the scope of services, the years of experience, education, and also reference are requested for this RFP. It is important that each proposer provide at least 3 past or current clients reference for IT consulting services, and proposer will provide for each reference the client name, the contact person, phone, email address, and description of services provided in Exhibit L. This exhibit is called reference information, and the PRDOH We'll send via email to each reference provided a performance rating questionnaire to contact the person identified by the proposer in this exhibit, and the PRDOH will require a response to the PRQ within 5 business days from the date sent. The PRDOH also reserve the right to extend this term as may deem appropriate. You may also, the proposers are to be aware that the PRDOH will not be responsible references that are not received during the established period. So you may contact the reference in order so that reference can provide us with an answer for the reference. Also, the work approach is going to be evaluated in this RFP, and all proposers shall draft and submit a work approach document. And as part of the proposal, cost proposal requirements will also be evaluated. All costs related to the services are to be provided using Exhibit O, okay? So the proposer will be compensated based on hours work and hourly rates for each key staff identified in the scope of services and in the instructions for the RFP. Okay, for proposals evaluations, this process of the RFP is a base value, will be using a best value methodology. This means that the proposers will be evaluated on their qualifications, on their technical capabilities, namely the proposer's qualifications on work approach, and score for each criteria will be assigned based on the maximum points stated in the RFP. To be considered qualified for these services, proposers need to achieve a technical score greater than or equal to 70 points in the evaluation of the technical proposal. And this is something very important. The proposers about the SAM registration process. The proposers and first-year subcontractors must be registered in the system for award management at the time of the proposal submission, or initiate the registration process right after the proposal submission. And for more information about the system of award management, go to the website www.sat.gov. And there is no registration fee to create or renew or update your organization's information on SAM. And it is important to remember that awards will be only issued to entities which are tiered and not ineligible for award of a contract due to a suspension, debarment, or who had imposed limited denial of participation. With this, we have summarized very briefly the contents for this RFP and the most important sections, but please review all documentation included in the RFP package. You may download this documentation through the website. And if you have any questions regarding the process, you may submit all questions through our web procurement email direct address that is provided also within the documentation that you may download. I think this is our part. Now I will permit to Maria to present the information about Section 3 and other important things that you may know. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Laura, for that presentation. I'm going to present our part of Section 3 and MWBE. Hi, everyone. If you have any questions, please feel free to write it on the Q&A part session of this call, and we will address it. I will share my screen right now. Please let me know if you can see it. Well, hi everyone again, and we are presenting the Federal Civil Rights Compliance. This is an introduction to Federal Civil Rights Compliance on Labor Standards. This is our pre-submission training. Today we will cover CDBG-DR roles and responsibilities, overview for civil rights compliance and labor standard compliance, the process for interacting with our department and services we provide, training plan structure, introduction to compliance areas, current policies and tools available online, and of course, we will address your questions. Achieving compliance for civil rights, Puerto Rico Department of Housing, our team is dedicated to work with your teams to ensure we can all successfully complete compliance requirements for this CDBG-DR funding. We provide for those CDBG-DR guidance, tools, and templates for program areas, training sessions to methodically cover the compliance material, sorry about that, collect information in reports, documents, and other material from recipients and all contractors for Section 3 Mwbe, Davis-Bacon, and Fair Housing, complete review of submitted documents and reports, and providing feedback, gathering data from subrecipient and contractor from quarterly reporting, and report to HUD for all program areas in CDBG-DR. You have in that slide, you have my contact info, Maria del Carmen Figueroa Correa, and also you have the emails of Denami Freites Rojas and Wilton Malavet Alameda, which are part of my team. Feel free to contact us for any questions. So, the subrecipients and their contractors have to comply with all these 4 areas. These areas we know as Federal Civil Rights and Labor Standards Compliance. These include Section 3 Training, Hiring, and Contracting Opportunities Compliance, and Minority and Woman-Owned Business Participation Compliance. Also, we have Davis-Bacon and Related Acts Compliance, and at least but not least important, Fair Housing and Fair Housing Compliance. These areas of compliance will be applicable to every area in the CDBG-DR program, such as the housing programs, planning programs, multi-sector, infrastructure, economic development. I mean, it will apply to everyone. How we achieve compliance for civil rights? Well, contractors' roles and responsibilities include assigning staff who will attend to the day-to-day activities for civil rights compliance. It's really important to identify that person. Attending trainings and workshops, executing activities and documentation needed, completing our quarterly reporting, that's very, very important too, interacting with our department to provide you tools, resources, and other material, reaching out to our department when you have questions or need technical assistance. We are here for you guys, complying with reporting for each area. And this is how we have established our workflow with our contractors and recipients. Think about that you are already signed a contract with Vivienda. You then will identify that staff to attend these programs areas on a day-to-day basis. And then that person will attend our trainings and our workshops. We'll review our policy guides established by Vivienda and already published on our website. Use our tools and templates provided by Vivienda and ask for technical assistance if needed. Implement policies and execute activities attend any workshops to complete documents. That's very, very useful. Submit necessary documentations that we are going to require you. Respond to any notification if provided for corrections and changes that you have to make. And finally, complete that quarterly reporting that will help you to maintain that documentation in place every 3 months. So we have developed a Section 3 and MWB training plan for contractors and recipients. We have Section 3 and MWBE. That training plan includes the fundamentals, include the documentation and activities for Section 3 and MWBE, includes understanding that quarterly reporting, and of course, technical assistance all the way, and workshops. When we are talking about Section 3, we are talking about specifically a section of the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968 that provide, to the greatest extent feasible, job training, employment, contracting, and other economic opportunities generated by certain HUD financial assistance, and specifically to low and very low income persons and businesses. When we're talking about a Section 3 resident, we are referring to a public housing resident and or a low and very low income person who live in a metropolitan area or a non-metropolitan area, county where a HUD assisted project for housing or community development is located. When we are talking about that low and very low income person, we are referring using the HUD 2019 income limits chart. We are referring to everyone that doesn't have an income above 28,850. So anybody that has a low income from that quantity is considered a low or a very low income person for Section 3 purposes. Section 3 businesses, at least 51% or more owned by Section 3 resident, or whose permanent full-time employees include persons at least 30% of whom are currently Section 3 residents or within 3 years of the date of first employment with the business concerned were Section 3 residents, or provides evidence of a commitment to subcontract in excess of 25% of the dollar award of all contractors awarded to a Section 3 business concern. So you can be considered a Section 3 business if you establish one of those 3 elements. A Section 3 business concern should have the ability and capacity to perform the scope of work. That's very, very important. We are not ensuring that job. We are ensuring the preference to be considered for that job, all right? A Section 3 is the law, as you see, is part of the Housing and Urban Development Act. So it's not an option and there are no waivers. We have to comply with this. Section 3 applicability to grantees as vivienda is going to apply when that grantee receives an award in excess of 200K. That will definitely apply to vivienda right now for the CDBG-DR program. And will also apply to all contracts in amount greater than 100K. That's the case of basically the universe of the vivienda contracts right now. So it will apply to everybody. And also will apply a minimum goals that HUD has established for us for these efforts. In a non-construction related contract, it will be 3% of that total amount. It has to be focused on contracting Section 3. And on construction contracts, it will be at least 10% that you have to focus on contracting efforts and activities. And for all new hires, at least 30% of all new hires will be or have to be Section 3 to be able to comply with these regulations. Basically, for all programs or projects using at least $1 of CDBG-DR funding that meet the thresholds above and involve installation of materials. There you have the minimum goals again. I think this graphic will help you to understand it better. We are talking about new hires. Of the aggregate of new hires annually are Section 3 resident, at least 30%. That will apply to all the grantees, the recipients, and contractors. When we are talking about construction contracts, we're talking about at least 10% of the total dollar amount of all Section 3 covered contracts for building trades work for maintenance, repair, modernization, or development of public housing, or for building trades work arising in connection with housing rehabilitation, housing construction, and other public constructions. Section 3 businesses concerned should have the ability and capacity to perform the scope of work. So 10%, it should be directly to contract activities with Section 3 businesses. And non-construction contracts, HUD established the minimum goal of 3% of the total dollar amount. How we implement Section 3 policy: all contractors must read and understand Vivienda Section 3 policy. Is now available in English and Spanish in our website. So you should go ahead and take a look at that, because it's very, very important for our contractors to understand our policies on this. We have, as I said before, we have developed tools and templates that will make your life much more easier in order to be in compliance with Vivienda and with HUD, that include a Section 3 contract plan or a Section 3 recipient plan. It's a template that you can use as a model for that Section 3 plan that we require. And the Section 3 plan that also in this process of bidding, it can suppose a bonus for you. So you can use that template. The Section 3 self-certification forms is very important for identifying who in your team is already a Section 3 individual, or your new hires. So you can fill out and be in compliance with at least that 30% of new hires. Documentation of efforts form that will englobe all your activities and efforts to be in compliance with HUD and Vivienda. And finally, our quarterly reporting template that will include the compliance in the 4 areas that federal compliance team is requiring to have. The Section 3 plan should contain the minimum information. That Section 3 plan should have the recipient basic information such as name, address, contact information, website. It should have an identification of a Section 3 coordinator. It should have the identification of the project area, a specific information about the recipient current workforce and any foreseeable hiring needs, a firm commitment to document and report efforts that will be made to notify Section 3 businesses concerned of contracting opportunities generated by HUD financial assistance for housing and community development programs to the greatest extent feasible, A firm commitment to review any Section 3 self-certification forms and review and request supporting documentation. Provide a process for any Section 3 complaints to be filed and addressed, and agree to notify PRDOH in the event of such compliance. Indicate ability to complete required reporting for Section 3 hiring and contracting at least on a quarterly basis. And the Section 3 template that we have developed, the template that you can use as model, will contemplate these 8 areas that you should have in your Section 3 plan. How we locate Section 3 businesses. HUD offers a few resources on their site for identifying if a business qualifies as Section 3 to register with HUD as a Section 3 business, and search for a business using their online tool. You have to be aware that HUD has not verified the information submitted by business listed in this register and does not endorse the services that they provide. So we have to actually revise that documentation, that self-certifications, and that information to be sure that we are talking about a Section 3 business, as we describe the 3 instances that a Section 3 business can be identified as a Section 3 business. When we're talking about minority and woman business enterprise, we are also talking about a federal requirement that we have to comply with. And this is a recipient of HUD financial assistance, the Uniform Administrative Requirements of at 2 CFR 200/321 require PRDOH Vivienda to ensure that, when possible, contracts and other economic opportunities funded in whole or in part with federal housing and community development assistance are directed to minority business enterprise and woman business enterprise. Contractors will take all necessary affirmative steps to assure that minority firms and women's business enterprises are reached out to and used when possible. Efforts should be documented, and utilization plans should be provided to Vivienda. Contracting with small and MWBEs. What is a WBE? A WBE is a business concern that is at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women, must be U.S. citizen or legal resident aliens whose business formation and principal place of business are in the U.S. or its territories, and whose management and daily operation is controlled by women. When we're talking about the M, what is a MBE? Is defined as a business that is at least 51% operated and controlled on a daily basis by one or more, in combination, can be American citizens of the following ethnic minority and or gender. Military veteran classifications: African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Native American, Jew, persons with disabilities, other individuals who can prove social and economic disadvantage. MWBE participation requirement. MWBE requirements apply to all procurement contracts of 10,000 or more. MWBE applies to professional services and construction work as well. The participation requirements is based on the total amount of each individual prime contract awarded by Vivienda. The MWBE participation requirements is 20%, 10% for MBE and 10% for WBE. These requirements may be met either through the initial contract award if the prime is a MWBE, or the requirement may be met through subcontracts specified within the prime bidder's proposal or bid. Certified minority or woman-owned business. Certified minority or woman-owned business can be those who applicants with the SBA to fill applications with the SBA, Environmental Protection Agency, DOT, other can be the MBDA that has office in Puerto Rico. So the application contains an attestation of the accuracy and truthfulness of the information on the application by sworn affidavit or an unsworn declaration executed under penalty of perjury of the laws of the United States. The application includes evidence demonstrating that the entity is owned and or controlled by one or more individuals claiming disadvantaged status of such individuals. How we implementing MWBE policy? Well, we have to, all recipients must and contractors must read and understand PRDOH MWBE policy that is available in English as well as in Spanish in our website. So you should go there and know about that policy. MWBE forms, as I said earlier, we have developed forms and templates to make your life very, very easy in order to be in compliance 100%. We have developed an MWBE utilization plan template, and this will allow contractors or recipients to identify how they plan or being in compliance with MWBE contracting goals. You can use that template. We also have developed the MWBE waiver form. This document template helps recipients and contractors identify if they met the requirements to waive their goal or for participation for MWBE. The documentation of effort forms that will allow contractors and recipients to identify how they are performing efforts to be in compliance with Section 3 efforts and MWBE efforts. And quarterly reporting template. These reporting forms allow contractors and recipients to report on data that Vivienda will require to report annually, and will include the 4 federal compliance areas that we are working on. Submitting an MWBE utilization plan. An MWBE plan identifies where they are contracting opportunities to engage minority or women businesses. The form collects information on those subcontracts and information about those businesses. Recipients and contractors should complete this form to identify where contracting opportunities will exist for MWBE businesses. Locating minority business enterprises. That's very important. PRDOH will be compiling lists from various resources to also assist contractors with locating minority and woman-owned businesses. You are not alone in this. The Puerto Rican Minority Supplier Development Council also has a digital catalog that can be accessed at, you have there the link. You can contact the PRSBA office, contact the PRSBA office for a listing of minority businesses. We can assist you with that also. And SBA also offers a resource book with contact and information about all these certified businesses. Fair housing and related regulations. Fair housing, what is fair housing? Well, fair housing is a person's right to live in the housing of her and his choice, free from discrimination. This is actually a federal requirement. This is a law, the Fair Housing Act of 1964. So we cannot discriminate on any classifications that are mentioned there. And this that you have on your right is all the acts and statutes that really includes the prohibition of discrimination of any kind. Limited English proficiency. Our department is also charged with assuring that limited English proficiency is attended to. The Census Bureau defines limited English proficiency as speaking English less than very well. Title 6 prohibits discrimination in programs and activities receiving federal finance assistance on the basis of race, color, or national origin. It's very important that we offer that opportunity in English and Spanish of all the information, so we can be in compliance with this requirement. Puerto Rico has at least 2 millones LAP Spanish speaking persons. So how to determine if there is meaningful access? Gauge the ability to be able to access program and participate in services, activities, and other benefits. Identify available materials and vital documents available in Spanish and English languages. Ensure resources are known amongst programs and entities, and revise as needed to ensure the quality and accuracy of the translation and plain language. Identify vital documents and budget resources for the translation of such documents based on the assessment of need and capacity. Essential elements of LAP are translation of vital documents, languages identified in your 4-factor analysis, I speak cards available in the required languages, access to a translation line, and website accessible for LAP persons. Where we have developed as well a training for fair housing that includes the fundamental of fair housing, that documentation on activities for fair housing, understanding that quarterly reporting that you are going to provide the information for fair housing as well, and obviously the technical assistant workshop that we're going to continuously offer you for assistance. And Davis-Bacon is the 4th area that we are working on, the 4 federal compliance. I will go very quickly about in this topic because we are talking about today. We're talking about professional services contracts that not include construction. So Davis-Bacon is as well a federal regulation that applies to construction work. So it requires the payment of prevailing wage rates to all laborers and mechanics on federal government construction contracts in excess of $2,000. So it will apply on construction work. It doesn't apply to us this morning, but I needed you to understand that is as well a part of federal compliance when applied. There you have it. What is Davis-Bacon? Is construction work includes rehabilitation and reconstruction. Demolition is part of the definition of Davis-Bacon and applicability. And then you have all the laws and statutes that really refer to labor standards as a general. Davis-Bacon, there's two types of wage determination. You can have a general wage decision, or you can have a project wage decision. And there you have 4 different general wage determination, depending on the kind of scope of work or kind of construction work that you are making. And we also have developed a training program, a training curriculum for Davis-Bacon when applies to the contractors that apply that, and includes the fundamental, the documentation, the performing review of contractor payrolls. That's very important. And understanding that Davis-Bacon reporting, the quarterly report, and also the technical assistance that we are going to be providing. This quarterly reporting that will include the 4 main federal compliance areas. We have established dates for that quarterly report. We just passed the first date, April 5. And then we have July 5, October 5, and January 5 of 2021. So we are that's this quarterly report and these dates keep us on working on that documentation, that information, and make it easy for the contractor, the recipient, and Vivienda to really document all that information. This is a recap on our program activities. We have, as Vivienda, we have developed compliance technical assistance program with all the curriculums and with all that technical assistance that we are going to provide you. We have developed tools and templates to make your life very, very easy, and we have to report annually to HUD that information that we are going to collect in that quarterly reporting of yours. As sub-recipients or recipients and contractors, you have the responsibility of identifying that new hiring opportunities. You also have the responsibility to identify those Section 3 and Mwbe contracting opportunities. You should and have the responsibility to attend our trainings and workshops because it's going to be very, very useful. And obviously comply with that quarterly reporting with all that data that we are requiring for our annually HUD report. If you have any questions today or later on, feel free to contact me. You have my information of contact, and I will, this is all that I have for you today. We can have another conversation later on. I want to thank the Procurement Office for this opportunity to address these important federal requirements and to make me available for our audience for any assistance or question that they may have.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much for your thorough explanation regarding the Section 3 and other subjects or matters for requirements on the CDBG-DR program. I would like to thank you all attendees for this private meeting. There were being some questions that we have answered. Others we have recommended that you submit your questions in writing in accordance with the RFP instructions. We are going to gather all of your questions in this session, and we will prepare the answers for those questions and publish in an addendum. Some of you asked if we are going to share the recording of this meeting. That the answer is yes, and we will notify all of you the availability of the recording, so you can review any of the things that we have talked in this morning. So you know that there is a schedule that is included in our RFP instructions. So the first thing that we must recommend to you is that you familiarize with all the documents, the procurement manual, the RFP instructions, and we will wait for your writing questions, clarifications, and any recommendation that you may have regarding this solicitation. So if any other one of our staff have any other comment, you may proceed right now. If not, we can adjourn this meeting. Laura, do you have any comment? Maria? No? So we thank you again.
Sorry,
Yeah.
William, I was in mute. Just to say thank you to everyone for your participation during the day, and we are available to answer any question, as William mentioned. that you may have about this process or about the Federal Civil Rights Compliance and Labor Standard, as Maria said. And thank you, Maria, for sharing us this important information.
Okay, so finally, we have worked in preparing the documentation and instructions. We think it's the best way to organize and instruct the preparation of a proposal. But anyways, we welcome any recommendation to improve our process. So be free on submitting any recommendation regarding the instructions including in our RFP. So with that said, thank you again, and have a nice day and be safe. Thanks.